Hey YouTube, Bob here. Welcome to World of Nintendo. I've got a lot more content like this on the way, so be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment to let me know what you think. Here we go. In this next edition of Nintendo Unboxed, we have Super Metroid, the exciting follow-up to Metroid 2 on the Game Boy. This was released for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in 1994. And I can remember at that time I was graduating from 8th grade, almost a high school student, and at that point I really was starting to transition out of my Nintendo fandom and into music. I was really getting into collecting CDs for various bands that I liked at the time. So that was taking up my hobby time at that point. But my friend Brian was still really into video games at that time, and he had bought Super Metroid. And we had several sleepovers where he would play through this game. And we'd take turns occasionally, but I would let him man the controller most of the time. But I really did like this game at that time, even though I didn't pick it up then. But this was one of the first games that I went back to retroactively collect in 2006 when I began my Nintendo collecting. So let's take a look at Super Metroid. Got some awesome box art here, very beautiful illustration, and something that's interesting I've always noticed about this packaging is the first party Nintendo games, they always used to like to distinguish themselves by having some little note here that's letting you know that this game is only for this particular Nintendo system, and you would see that right on up through you know, the N64 and even the GameCube. They would let you know, hey, this first party Nintendo game is only available on this Nintendo platform. But what's unique about this one is this is the only one that has only 4 in kind of a green font here, almost kind of looks like alien blood or some sort of goop, whereas the rest of the games had kind of a tear or a peel back on the packaging, and then there was I won't describe it, I'll just put an image up here on the screen so you can see the difference. But to my knowledge, this is the only variation here on Super Metroid that we would see in that branding. But that's what we got on the front here, and then that continues on the side panels, at least the long side panels. Interesting that Samus's foot kind of continues down here over the Super Metroid logo, and then we've got just the Super Metroid logo on the end panels here. So, Super Metroid. Team up with the strength of Samus for a Super Metroid clash. Take on a legion of space pirates and a new Metroid force as you forge into the covert underworld of planet Zebes. It's up to you and Samus to recapture the long-surviving Metroid hatching before evil hands unleash its energy. An army of ominous creatures are poised for battle at every turn of Zebes' twisted, threatening passageways, including the menacing Ridley and the great lizard Kraid. Knock down enemies with a killer somersault and swing on an electric beam through narrow passageways. They're no match for you and Samus. But wait, it seems the Mother Brain has returned. So here, touting some of the game's features in yellow text. 24 megs of action in the largest Super NES game ever. It's the toughest Metroid clash yet, and at this point, of the 3 games that had been released, the original on the NES and then Metroid 2 Return of Samus on the Game Boy. 6 huge areas to explore. Samus has an arsenal of new beams, missiles, and super high-tech devices. Battery-backed memory saves your progress. And yes, you would certainly need that as you went through this Metroidvania, or at this point, Castlevania Symphony of the Night had not been released yet, and it had not kind of copied this map format. So really just this Metroid-style adventure, where you had the map that would unfold before you, and you could see your progress there on screen, which was really cool. And this game, being on a home console, it used colors, unlike the Game Boy, so you could actually see the color changes in Samus's suit and cannons, unlike the big shoulders that she would sport in Metroid 2: Return of Samus on Game Boy, to kind of make those upgrades visible. But let's take a look and see what we have inside the box. This is a pretty standard Super NES release here, but I'm going to ask your help in helping me remember if this game originally came with a dust cover or not. I've mentioned in some of my previous unboxing videos that Nintendo stopped supplying the dust covers in 1994. And this game came out in 1994, but some of the first games I remembered not having a dust cover were Mortal Kombat 2, Donkey Kong Country, and Final Fantasy III. Those games all came out in the latter half of 1994, whereas this one was released more in the middle of the year. So I cannot remember if this originally came with a dust cover or not. So if you know that, please let me know. I'd be very interested to have that information. This is a pretty standard first-party Nintendo cart with the name of the game printed in kind of a turquoise or teal color there in block letters. And then since this is an older, or actually a newer Super NES cartridge here, we've got that design where they defeated the locking mechanism. So that's the cartridge. Got the retainer tray here, pretty standard. This came with an instruction manual, which we'll take a look at. A poster, kind of a newer style poster. You don't see these too much. I think this was only briefly included in games. And it looks like we've got the consumer precautions pamphlet as always. So the only thing to do with that is this. Throw that to the side. But this is neat to see a Nintendo Power subscription kind of themed to the game that you just bought that it was included with. So get an awesome arsenal of free advice. You'll need it. And on the back, the best ending to Super Metroid begins here. So yeah, just looking at this art here reminds me, God, some of these boss characters were absolutely huge. Join the Nintendo Power Super Power Club and blast your game into the stratosphere with a free Super Metroid Player's Guide. If you want to beat the clock and go for the best ending to Super Metroid, start here. So this is kind of a written advertisement here for that player's guide that you could get for sending away for Nintendo Power magazine. Join the Super Power Club. Yeah, and at that time, within the Nintendo Power magazine, they were giving you kind of trading cards for games, although that was very brief. They only did that for a couple of years. You'd get a bonus issue to start the year off in January, a super thick issue with lots of bonus content, and then they would actually give you some coupons for a couple dollars off select games, so that was kind of cool. Lots of incentives there to join up with Nintendo Power. Plus, you get your player's guide for Super Metroid, because apparently you'll need it. So we'll take a look at the poster here. Right away we see Mario Paint. Looks like on the back, I think we've seen this this back of the poster here before. Got a full side ad here for Nintendo Power, the Super Power Club, featuring Star Fox. This game had come out in 1993, a year prior. Kind of an advertisement there again to join the Super Power Club. And then this poster here featuring Star Fox and the Super FX chip and some of the newer games at the time. We've got some sports games like Super Tennis, NCAA Basketball, Super Play Action Football, Super Soccer, lots of sports games here. Of the 16-bit consoles, the Genesis was actually better known for its sports titles than the Super NES, but Nintendo did have quite a few sports titles, and a lot of them were first-party too. But then over here on the bottom half, we've got some of the older games like Super Mario World, Pilot Wings, Super Mario Kart. But that's one of the unique things about first-party Nintendo games is they are so evergreen, meaning that they retain their value, they retain their playability, and people want them. There's a huge demand for them, so that's really unique, just a testament to how good first-party Nintendo games usually are. So here's the instruction manual for Super Metroid. Nothing too interesting going on the back there, just plain black. But we have that same box art here on the cover. So contents, the Metroid Menace. Using the controller, playing the game, saving data, the planet Zebes, item acquisition, opening doors, and the creatures of Zebes. So the Metroid Menace. kind of taking you back to the previous game, the Game Boy games, Metroid 2, Return of Samus. More backstory there about the planet, SR388. Got some screens there of the new game here, Super Metroid. Using the controller here, you can see how the different commands are mapped to the various buttons, and Super Metroid was a game that actually took full advantage of all the buttons on that Super Nintendo controller. All the face buttons and the shoulder buttons, pretty much everything was utilized, so really full use of the controller there. And reminding you here up at the top that it's a one-player game and that you'll have to plug your controller into port 1. And then here, how to navigate through the data screen and selecting your file. And then the unique option here that you could turn the text to Japanese if you wanted to. How to set what button does what. That's always a nice option. I wish every game would include that. And the game screen, how to tell what's going on your HUD. And then your on-screen map, that would be the impetus for Metroidvania-style games. This is where that all started, or at least got popular. Really cool wireframe graphic there of Samus. Saving your data. Really cool map here of Planet Zebes. All the different areas here. Nice illustration. Samus Aran's mission is to infiltrate the headquarters of the Zebesian space pirates and recapture the Metroid hatchling. Zebes is made up of 6 huge areas. Here's a brief survey of the planet. And what kind of stands out to me here is the lake here in the shape of a Roman numeral 3. And this is the 3rd installment in the Metroid series, but the title is just Super Metroid. It's the number 3 isn't really mentioned in the naming of the game in any other place other than the cinematic opening title. Metroid 3 briefly scrolls across the screen there. So interesting how it's not part of the title, but it is mentioned very subtly in other parts of the game. Item acquisition, you get your things from Chozo statues just like in the original Metroid game. All the different types of missiles and bombs that you can get, different beams as well. So many items in this game. Different suits as well, and again, unlike the Game Boy sequel, Metroid 2, Return of Samus, they're using color here to denote the different types of suits, whereas in the Game Boy game they had to make it a physical change in the form of the big shoulders. But that's a design cue that kind of stuck, because you can see the shoulders are here as well in the artwork. Getting into the different enemies here, we got a combination of illustrations and pixel art, which I always appreciate. But as the generations of games progressed, the illustrations weren't necessary quite as much because the pixel art actually looked more and more like what it was supposed to represent. You didn't have to use your imagination quite as much. However, it is very cool to see the original illustrations. These are from Norfair. Meridia, got it broken up into the different areas, the baddies that you're going to come across here. Venturian, and the Metroids themselves. Make it short and sweet. There are several different ending sequences for the game. The sequence that you see depends on the amount of time that you log on the planet. A shorter time results in a better ending. So the better you get, the quicker you get, the better ending you'll be able to see. And speaking of an ending here, we're ending with a warning that it's a crime to copy video games. You don't need backup copies, and if it's found that you do have them or are making them, you will be prosecuted. This is what to do if you have problems. Call the Nintendo number. And then we got our 90-day limited warranty. So, that is Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. an excellent game that would inspire the Metroidvania style type of game. So I hope you enjoyed this unboxing here, and I invite you to stay tuned for many more, as well as some other comment that I have coming down the pipeline. But until then, take care. Bye-bye.